Welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps. We're going to continue on my homeschool application that I've been building over the course of this stream. And tonight we're going to work on upgrading Tailwind CSS. So I've got a version that is a little older, and it's time to do the upgrade and go through the migration guide. And so we're going to do that. So before we get going, though, I want to thank the patrons that I have supporting me. And you can support me as well at patreon.com/mblehman if you're interested and like what I produce. But I want to say thanks to Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Philip, Miguel, Shivan, and Monty. Appreciate all your support. It helps me stay motivated to keep going with this stuff. If you're joining live and you're able to ask questions, I would love to chat with you. You can ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. And if I could get typing here, I do pay attention to that, so keep it clean, please. That's all I really ask of you, and keep it on topic if you can. But I try to answer questions about Python and Django. That's why I'm here primarily. Also, the secondary thing is to actually make progress on my website. So the website that I'm building does serve actual customers, and we go through that process. So let's talk about what we're going to do this evening. I have a website that works with Tailwind CSS. Tailwind is a really fantastic framework for working with CSS, and my site currently is on version 2. And the reasons for that, well, there are a number of reasons for that we're going to get into, but what we need to do this evening is actually go through the upgrade guide, which should be somewhere in here. I'm going to search for migration, maybe. No, they called it something else. There's a guide in here that will walk us through the steps to actually upgrade the site and to go through all of the changes that are needed to go from 2 to 3. It's probably at the bottom, if I would guess. Maybe not. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Upgrade guide. So the significance of this is that there's some pretty sizable changes that happen between version 2 and version 3 of Tailwind, and the mode at which you have to do that development. And so my upgrade process is also going to involve changes to how I work with Tailwind. The biggest difference overall is that when I currently work with Tailwind and I'm in my development environment, what I'm doing is generating a gigantic CSS file that includes all of Tailwind's CSS classes. And that file contains all the classes, but it comes at this performance cost. And Tailwind changed the philosophy of how you should interact with this during development, or they made it a first-class priority to no longer do that, so that even when you're doing development, you get a minified file. And the way that the project roughly did that is by adding this just-in-time compiler and really making this tool chain that is like something you always want to be running. So the current mode that I have is I generate the Tailwind file for my development environment, and it's this gigantic file, and then when I deploy to my production environment, it goes through this compression process and strips out all the extra stuff that's not needed, and I just don't do that locally in development. So why go through this process? Well, it's important to stay on top of packages generally for security upgrades, and just make sure that you don't get too far behind and get stuck on some older version. So there's that aspect of it. But there's also this really important secondary aspect. If you've followed on previous streams, you saw that we've been working on this PDF process. And I'm in the process of building PDFs for reports for the end of a school year. So when a user finishes their school year and they need reports about what their students do, they need to be able to get proof to their government or for their own record-keeping purposes of everything that happened. And we're using a package called WheezyPrint to make that possible. And WheezyPrint does HTML, and it kind of mixes it with CSS. But WheezyPrint is not meant to be a full browser. It's not like going into Chrome and taking some kind of screenshot and PDF preview there and getting the output out of that. It's its own rendering engine. But what I don't want to do is force WheezyPrint to process 5 megabytes worth of CSS file in order to generate PDFs. So the purpose of doing this upgrade is to enable us to use Tailwind CSS in WheezyPrint. And I guess I didn't connect the dots very well there, because the way WheezyPrint works is it works by taking an HTML template and content and adds in the CSS and then somehow transforms that into the actual PDF output. So that's the process there, but I don't want to do that yet until I've got the CSS down to something manageable. Otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty burdensome on WheezyPrint to handle all of that. So that's the plan. The big change that I mentioned, though, with this shift from having your minified or your compressed CSS file all the time means that Tailwind constantly has to be running while I'm doing development. And my development flow right now does not have Tailwind running all the time. So there's this idea of having a watcher. And the watcher is a process that's paying attention to certain directories. And it depends on your configuration, but those directories will dictate what gets added and removed from a CSS file. And so these correspond, in my case, to my Django template. So whenever I add a new CSS class to a template, we want the watcher to detect that that file has changed, that there's a new addition of a new CSS class, and that CSS attribute gets added to the generated CSS file. That's roughly the process that needs to happen here. There are some other changes that we'll have to deal with, and those correspond to changes that are in the framework itself, things that have been renamed, and we'll have to go through this guide to figure out what's going on there. So that's my plan. We're going to walk through this guide. I have not looked at this in advance, so we're going to look at it with fresh eyes together, and we'll see how it goes. So let's start with the guide. Now, there's probably some video that we could watch here. I'm not going to make you watch a video on my stream. That'd be super weird. We're just going to read some text. So, yeah, brand new internal engine. That's the just-in-time compiler thing that they added. They take stability seriously, and it looks like this should take us less than 30 minutes if all goes according to plan. I'm going to be talking through that, so maybe it won't take 30 minutes, although that'd be awesome if it did. I've been using Tailwind for quite a while, so my Tailwind project is actually coming from version 1. So I did upgrade to version 2, but I might have some baggage from the version 1 in the configuration file. Hopefully that doesn't come too much into play. Let's get right into it and see what we need to do. So to start, we need to update Tailwind as well as post CSS, and auto prefixer. Okay, so let's go over to our shell here. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to do this on a branch because I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't want to be stuck in case I need to apply some other fixes. I think I'm up to date with my remote repository, so that's all good. So we need to start a branch. So I'm going to do git checkout. That's what my shortcut is there. And this is the Tailwind v3 upgrade is really what we're working on here tonight. All of my Tailwind stuff is where? It looks like I have the packages at this root level. So I have some configuration in this front-end directory, I think, that's going to matter later. And you can see there's a Tailwind config CS file, JS file, read the file path mat. So that's there. But the actual files that we need to upgrade and then make changes to are package JSON here, the package lock. I don't even know what version of Node.js I have, which is the way that Tailwind needs to run. So we can probably check on stuff like npm, not npm, npm. And that might tell us what version of Node we're running here. It's at least telling us what version of npm we're running. But let's see, what is Node.js running? I guess they changed it to just Node. 17, that's probably enough. I don't know. Not paying too much attention to that. I think it would probably state what it's requiring somewhere along the way. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just assume that people are going to stay up to date. So first things first, we're on this new branch, so we're free to make changes here. Let's take this and upgrade just to everything it says to upgrade to. I don't know how long this will take, hopefully not too long. I don't know how out of date my stuff is, so we'll see. Unsupported engine. Oh no. current is That's interesting that I'm apparently on something newer than what some package. I don't even know what package it's talking about. This is where like the NPM needs to work on their logging or something. I'm hoping that that is not really a critical error. We'll see. If I need to downgrade my node, I guess I could do that. Yeah, this is the state of the world. We're on this version of stuff, and it's asking for something lower. Okay. And then at the bottom, it tells me that there's a new version available. So thanks, NPM. Good times. All right, so we got two changes that command modified both my package JSON file and the package lock. Let's take a look at the smaller one. The other one's going to be the full expansion of all of the dependencies, and we don't really care so much about that. But you can see that auto prefixer was bumped from 10.2 to 10.4. Post CSS went from 8.2 to 8.4, and then Tailwind is the big one that we care about. It's going from 2 to 3. All right, let's move on to the next bit in the process. See what we've got. First-party plugins. If you're using any of the plugins, make sure to update them. I don't believe I'm using any plugins. I think I kept it as vanilla as I could. We've got maybe this is why it was complaining, because it was saying it depending on a newer engine. So there's a good question there of what engine do we need to use? Because there's an important connection here. Like, I'm doing development locally, and I'm working on Node 17, but when I do a deploy to production, I might have set that engine because of what Heroku's engine is set to. So we need to check and find out, what is Heroku actually running on? Where are we going to find that? Is that in the runtime? No, that's just Python. Rats. We care about, what am I trying to get to? We care about a Heroku build pack. And then, so let's do a search. Heroku node version. There it is. Because the problem might be is that if Heroku is on the older version and it only works in the older version, then that's not a good thing. We would have to find a way to upgrade this. So we're on Node 15 is the engine that's listed. It doesn't even show up in this diagram. That's pretty strange. Specify. So I've got my Heroku buildpacks command. We could run that. I don't know if this is going to prompt me out to authenticate, which would be annoying. Yeah, I've got the first one there. I don't know how to get more information about it. If a node version isn't specified in the engine, the 16x release will be used. Well, that's still farther behind than what I have locally. So I did a recent brew upgrade, which is probably what's putting me at this latest stuff. Trying to figure out if I can need to influence this node version somehow. Or if I need to do something to like tell buildpack to upgrade. Let's poke around at the Heroku buildpacks. And so, okay, what are Heroku buildpacks? I'm deploying to Heroku. That's where my website lives. And the buildpacks are the tools that actually provide the base language that you're going to work with. So I have to build my CSS file as part of my deployment process. And so I need to have Node available to actually run Tailwind. And that's what I'm using here. So the build packs are a critical element. And so you can see I've got 3 of them. I've got Node, and that's for Tailwind. I'm using Hugo because I do a static blog that I configure with my project. And it uses the Hugo static site generator tool. And then I've got Python because my site is actually Python. So what can we find out with build packs? Is there a first? I guess maybe there's a build pack. Is there a singular command? Nope, it's just build packs. All right, so Heroku build packs. Okay, and so there's an info command that may be the one to do. So Heroku build packs info, and I think it was Heroku Node.js. Yeah. Heroku Node.js. Let's see what it says, if I got that right. Whoops. Is it slash? Slash, not colon. Wow, I don't know what the heck all that junk is. I like dumped out the README. That's super weird. I wonder if embedded in here somewhere is telling me which engine that they're currently targeting. I don't see anything. So I think what I'm going to do, I guess the safest thing I can do is I'll upgrade to 16 like their documentation says. And that's probably close enough to the 17 stuff that we're not going to get in trouble with that. Let's switch to 16. And that's probably still going to give us that warning that we just saw. Let's come over here and we're going to close some of these extra tabs for now. And let's go to the package JSON file and change from 15 to 16. And then we're going to do the same npm install command again. I don't know if that's going to change anything. Yeah, and there's that warning now. All right, so this is starting to make more sense. It was really my constraint on here that was actually the difference. Okay. We've belabored that point enough. I think it'll be okay. This will be part of the process. Let's go back to the upgrade guide. So we have no plugins aside from post CSS and auto prefixer. And we're not going to use the CDN, so that doesn't matter. All right, let's look at this engine. The new just-in-time engine has replaced the classic engine. The new engine generates the styles you need for your project on demand and might necessitate some small changes to your project depending on how you have Tailwind configured. If you are already using it, you can safely remove this. All right, so no matter what, we're getting this engine. I don't have to configure anything for that. Since Tailwind no longer uses purge CSS under the hood, oh, that's interesting. So do I get rid of that? I guess I never had it. Okay, I was just getting it from a dependency. So purge CSS is a cool tool. What it does is it finds all of, so it's what's looking at your template files, and it's looking for anything that looks like a CSS class. And if it finds it, it keeps it. But anything else that's not in the set of things that it finds, it throws away. And that's how it did the optimization. But it sounds like with this new engine, that's no longer needed anymore. But we need to go into the Tailwind config file and change from purge to, what did they call it? Content. Okay. Neat. Well, that seems like a pretty simple change. If you weren't using it, well, that doesn't apply to me. I don't need to think about that. Since we're not using purge CSS under the hood anymore, some of the advanced purge options may have changed or have changed. Okay. Dark mode. Well, I don't think I was using a dark mode because my site did not need a dark mode. And you know what? Let's see if we can, I think this is going to be something that we could have these side by side. So let's switch this to a vertical because look how thin that formatting is. So I've got a color scheme in here. Yep, there's no dark mode. All right, that one's done. Neat. Remove variant configuration. In Tailwind CSS 3, every variant is automatically available for every utility by default. So we don't need the variants section. Okay. So this was empty, but it's one more thing that we can delete. That's nice. Since all variants are now enabled by default, you no longer need to explicitly enable these for custom CSS. Well, I only had a tiny bit of custom CSS, and it wasn't even through Tailwind. It's a separate file that I was keeping. I'm hoping to actually delete this. We'll talk about why a little bit later, I hope, but we'll ignore that for now. So we don't need to do any of this stuff that they're talking about here. Automatic transforms and filters. Transform and filter utilities like scale and brightness 75 automatically take effect without needing to add the transform, filter, or backdrop filter classes. Okay. So anywhere that we have transform, we can get rid of that. Anywhere that we have filter, anywhere that we have backdrop filter, we can take those out. And this is a good point here. It's like, it's not going to hurt to leave them in. So if I miss one, it's not a big deal, but it's just useless like CSS classes. So let's search for that. I guess that would be in our, in the templates directory. So we want to search for transform in the templates directory. How many results do we have here? 16. Okay, not that many. So delete transform. Okay. Now I don't want to delete them. This is something else. This is transform on an SVG file, so definitely don't delete them there. So I'm glad I didn't just blindly delete them all. I can delete them from this div and that div and here, here, and here. And this one as well. And this is another SVG, so we don't want to do that. And that's the end. Okay, cool. So there's not much to do there. Okay, next. Filter. I'm afraid this might have more results than we want, but gotta look. Oh, none at all. Oh, so filter gets used a lot in the Django code. Like if I did a search, just a general search for filter, the ORM uses filter pretty heavily. So that would have been a method that we'd have to go through. But the fact that we did it scoped to the templates directory means that there's nothing to find, which is cool. And the other one was background filter, but I guess if it didn't find filter, then it's certainly not going to go find background filter. So that's all done. So as we're going along, maybe let's add some of these changes to the stage so that we can keep it clean as we're looking through each of these steps. So let's look at package.json. Change the engine, we change the dependencies. So that's good. We'll move on from there. And let's do the same diff on the lock file. Is going to look like a bunch of gobbledygook that I don't really care about. It's generated content. So let's add that as well. And why don't we go ahead and commit just those two files. And we'll say upgrade to latest Tailwind. All right, next we had the config file changes. So if I look, whoops. So we'll say, and there might be more later, but just get these one at a time. Update config file. And this is so that, like, if I want to review this at a later point, I'm going to probably take all of this content when I'm done and push it up as a PR. I'll at least have separate commits, so I don't have to, if I make a mistake anywhere, I can revert a single commit or change a single commit. But if I wait until the end and just merge it as, or put up a PR as one big mega commit, if I make a mistake, it's going to be a lot harder to back that out. So by breaking this down into individual pieces, it seems a little overkill, I recognize, but it might be beneficial in case I cause a problem. And it gives me this opportunity to look at each change along the way to make sure that we're kind of doing this right. Okay, next we've got the changes to transform. Transform. Oh, somewhere in here it says transform. A really long one. There it is, transform. That's gone. And transform, gone. Okay. Transform, gone. Okay. I think that's all of those. So we'll say remove transform class. It's nice that they cleaned that up because it was a little bit of extra like boilerplate anytime you wanted to do any kind of transformation, and I think they found some way to eliminate that and just bake it into the actual scale 50 or any of the scaling and rotation, all the things that you actually do transform. They must have found some way to incorporate that into that class itself. All right, so here's where we got to pay attention because this is. I kept the color palette from Tailwind 1, which is what we saw in that file. That's all of this stuff. The reason all of this exists is because this is the color palette from the original, because I didn't want to change the color scheme on my website just because I was upgrading to a new version of a CSS library. So they've changed some stuff again, and we need to update things. Tailwind CSS 3 now includes every color from the extended color palette by default, including previously disabled colors like cyan, rose, fuchsia, and lime, and all 5 variations of gray. Okay. In 2, several of the default colors were actually aliases to the extended colors. This is green, yellow, and purple. I'm pretty sure I used those. I don't think I ever used emerald, amber, or violet, though. Okay, in 3, these colors use the extended names by default. So if I had a green, what is this saying? What was previously BG Green 500 is now BG Emerald 500. And BG Green 500 now refers to the green from the extended palette. Well, this might be one of the things where we need to look, because I know that I use some greens in some places. And we can compare it to the actual live site, which is nice along the way here. If you're using these colors in your project, the simplest way to upgrade is to alias them back to their previous names. Maybe that's what we should do. That way we don't have to think about this. If you're already using a custom color palette, well, this might be me, because I'm pulling this from version 1. So I'm already using a custom color palette to get my green and purple and yellow. I don't think that really impacts me, actually. As part of enabling all of the extended colors, we've given the different gray shades shorter single word names to make them more practical. Cool. So if you're referencing any of the extended grays, you should update your references to the new names. If you weren't referencing any of the grays from the extended color palette, this change doesn't impact you. Right? I have gray. Does this mean I now need zinc? I'm confused by the way to interpret this. The V2 default is gray. But I have a custom palette here. So does it matter? I don't think it matters because I have a custom palette. So I'm gonna just like punt on all of this color configuration stuff. And if I need to correct it, I need to correct it. Okay, here's where we're gonna do some renames possibly. Browser developers added an overflow clip. So using overflow clip or text overflow is a really bad, okay. So do I have any overflow clip? That's what we need to look for. I don't think I do. No, doesn't matter. We've added grow star and shrink star as aliases for flexgrow star and flexshrink star. The old class names will always work, but we encourage you to update to the new ones. So they wanted to get rid of the flex part in front of it. So do I have any flexgrow? I think I do. Flexgrow or flexshrink? Flexgrow. Now I use flexgrow quite a bit, but I don't have them with like -0 after. I don't know. Well, here it is. Shrink. Let's bring up another tab. So Tailwind's pretty cool about its documentation. It's very searchable. So I'm going to search for grow and see if it drops me in the flex area. Yep. All right. So they've renamed it to just grow. So what I want to do is any of these places that I have flex grow, and I don't think I have any flex shrink. I don't think that's something I use. Okay, apparently it is. All right. Let's do the flex grow one first. I guess it doesn't really matter. And we're going to change all of these flex grows to just grow. 34 of them. Oh, that changed into my theme too. Ugh, bummer. Okay. So what files did we touch here? I don't actually want to change them on my theme. That's annoying. I want to leave my theme alone because it's on a different version of Tailwind, or it's doing its own thing. Let's go into blog, themes, chunky poster, and I don't want to keep anything in here. So okay. So now we've got our change. Psychometry, yeah, absolutely. So this is a homeschool application. And if you want to check it out, you're welcome to. It's live on the internet. It's serving real customers. You can go to thescholdesk.app. And it is for homeschool families. It's the idea behind it is provide scheduling tools for families, and my family being one of them. I have 2 kids, and my wife is actually a user of this tool. But I also have a few other customers. And so this evening what I'm doing is taking what you see here, the styling, which is all built with Tailwind version 2, and we're upgrading it to version 3 and following along with the guide. So that's what's going on. And hello to you from the United States. I don't actually know where Feliz, Brazil is. Is that western, northern, eastern? I'd love to understand where you're coming from. All right, so we've got flexgrow is changed, and thankfully I have great confidence in Vim to actually do the right thing and not replace more than it needed to. So I'm not going to stare too long at this diff. I'll just quickly glance through it. That looks good. And then we also want to do the same thing on flexshrink. And it's got the same problem where it's touching my actual like main theme. But that's the bottom from line 19 in my search results all the way to the top. So let's just go where it is not the blog area. And let's highlight these lines and say substitute flex shrink and replace it with just shrink. And I haven't actually saved that yet, so there we go. I think it was just the index file. Yep. Okay, so we should be able to find the shrink. Now that I've saved it, we should look for shrink in all of this file. Cool. I did know that Feliz means happy, because we say we have this famous Christmas song, I guess, of Feliz Navidad, which obviously means, I think, Happy Christmas, right? Is a literal translation. South Brazil, very cool. Well, welcome. All right, so we've got our changes here. Let's go ahead and commit this bunch, and we'll say change flexgrow shrink to grow and shrink. Wow, if I could type. All right, let's return to the migration guide and see what's next. Since browsers are finally starting to respect border radius when rendering outlines, we've added separate utilities for outline style, outline color, outline width, and outline offset. That means that outline white and outline black now only set the color, whereas in V2 they set all this stuff. So let's find out if we're using outline white or outline black. I don't remember using that anywhere. Outline white and outline black. Nothing. That's all good. All right. We've added box decoration clone. Wow. There's so much stuff in CSS that I learned CSS a long time ago, and I don't remember. I feel like I don't remember half this stuff. Thankfully, I don't need to use all this stuff, so it's all good. So decoration clone. I don't know that I have anything that uses decoration at all. My theme does, but again, the theme is for stuff I don't use or need. So okay, we can leave that one alone. Hoping that none of those previous commits changed the theme and it wasn't paying attention. Nope. Good. Minor changes. Separator cannot be a dash. I didn't use separator, so that didn't matter. Prefix cannot be a function. I don't think I use this either. Oh, yeah, that's the right file. I guess I already had it open. So that's not a problem. Ooh, file modifier order reverse. That could be annoying. Oh. If you're I didn't use file. I don't know what the file modifier is. Fill color and stroke color utilities mirror your theme color keys. Theme colors key by default now. This isn't a breaking change if you haven't customized your color palette, but I have. The fill color and stroke color classes may not work if you don't have current included in your custom color palette. Okay. So we need to add current to the custom color palette. Oh good, it's there. So this must have been in the migration guide from V1 to V2 because I don't remember this at all. This line right here. Negative values. Negative prefix in utilities is a first-class feature. Okay. So you can add minus in front of any utility. Great. The negative values have been removed from the default theme. So if you're referencing them with theme, I wasn't doing that. We don't have to worry about that either. In Tailwind CSS 3, the base directive must be present for utilities like transforms, filters, and shadows to work as expected. If you were previously disabling Tailwind's base styles but not including this directive, you should add it back and disable pre-flight in your core plugins. Oh man. So, file that we care about is here. Do we need to change this? I don't think we do. Base, components, and utilities. In fact, we don't need the extra spaces there. Put them like that, just like they have in their example. The screen layer has been renamed. Okay, I wasn't using that. Well, here's the interesting part, is we got to the bottom. That's cool. But I was pretty sure that the just-in-time thing meant we'd have to run this regularly. We don't currently have that, so maybe we have to back up in the setup. Let's see what's left. All right. Let's commit this small little change and then back up. Tweak site CSS. Because if I run, well, let's try and run the command, because if we look at the package.json command, there was a script that I have here. And that script is this build script. So we can do npm run build. Running Tailwind CSS without I. Please provide an input file. Well, I gave you an input file. Maybe we need to change it. Perhaps that was part of the new process here. All right, let's back up, go through some of the getting started. Seems a little backwards, but okay. Do what we can do. So we've installed it. That's not something new we have to do. We've set the content, got our file. We need to set this -i apparently. And I guess we can run npx instead of npm run. where is there? Huh. I think it's just easier to write npm run than all that stuff. This is just like a shortcut for all of that. We'll put it the -I here. And they looked like they wanted a more specific path, but I don't know why we need to provide that. Let's try and keep it as is. Run the build command. All right, it's done. How big is the new file? So the output file is this site CSS. Still 36K. Okay, so that's the big difference. The previous version would dump out like everything, unless you ran it through like a production mode. And there's the production mode would do the minification, but as you can see here, it's like seemingly already minifying this, or doing, I don't know what it's doing. That still seems kind of large actually for from what I know about Tailwind. I don't know why it's that big, but maybe that's how big mine is in production. Actually, let's go check it out. So we can go to the main site right now. We can bring up DevTools and reload the page. And somewhere in here, here's the site CSS file. Its size is, okay, 32. So maybe got a little bit bigger with Tailwind 3 by a few kilobytes. That's okay, because this stuff compresses really nicely. You can see compression is on, so it's only 6, almost 7 kilobytes total. So that's not too bad. So it's a little bit bigger, but that's the problem is like now when I am wanting to make a change and adding a new class, like if I add a new class that's not in that file at all, it's not going to be there. So that's troublesome when I'm doing local development. Let's keep walking through and see what we have to change here. No, those are not what I want. So we can add editor support. I don't really care about that right now. We're already using post CSS, right? Yeah, it's already here, so I don't know why it's telling us to do that. It's part of the install guide. In fact, do I still have the post CSS? Yeah. They've changed the style of what they used to recommend. Yeah, I'm listing this as like objects with Tailwind CSS and auto prefixer, and they're doing require. I don't understand the difference there. I'm not using this post CSS import thing, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not really doing a lot of specific customization and specialized files with my Tailwind project, so I don't need this at import ability right now. Okay. What am I looking for? Maybe I should pause. Like I'm kind of just looking through this documentation and it's not really clear. What I'm looking for is what I mentioned at the beginning of the stream is that I'm expecting there to be some kind of watcher where I'll be able to run a process regularly that will sit there and watch my files for changes. And anytime it detects a change, then it will be able to regenerate the file. I'm not seeing that though, which is troubling because it means I have a misunderstanding of what the framework is doing. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I'm hoping that we can get this a little bit later on. And through the documentation categories now, this is all like the actual framework or the library options. And we can do some searching for this too, if I'm wrong. I might have a misunderstanding of what Tailwind v3 was supposed to do, but the behavior, like the fact that I'm not in a production mode and it generated that smaller file, kind of tells me that it didn't generate all of the stuff. So it only used my templates and the content that was in there, which is not what I expect. So we've got nesting, all this stuff. I don't think any of this applies for what I need right now. About using various tools. Okay. Optimizing, this might have changed. Tailwind is incredibly performance focused. Yep, that's true. Yeah, this is about the size of mine. It's about 7 kilobytes, or mine was a tiny bit bigger than what Netflix is using. Okay. I don't think I need to go through a process of compressing mine with Brotli because I already have a tool. When I actually serve up my static files from my website, it is actually my Django web server that is serving them up. And I use a tool called White Noise. And White Noise is really good at serving up static files. And when I do my deployment process, it is actually the thing that is running stuff through Brotli. So I don't need to have Tailwind do this. It's really cool that Tailwind has this as an option. But it's not important for my context. The CSS Nano thing sounds like a cool extra step. I'm not convinced that I need it though. Browser support. Yeah, what in the world? Okay. Tailwind v3 watcher. How do you run this as a watcher? Just-in-time mode? Here we go. So this is like a version 2 thing. Lightning fast build times, cool. And they're telling you how to enable it. But then how do you run it that way, y'all? Well, shoot. Styles don't update when saving content files. Right? If your CSS isn't rebuilding when you change your content files, try Tailwind mode equal watch. Maybe it's because I'm missing a watch flag. Perhaps that's it. So I have a build mode here. It has the config. That's all good. But I need perhaps like a watch flag. Probably what I'm missing. Let's try npm run Tailwind CSS help. Whoops. Okay, it doesn't know. That's my fault. npx Tailwind CSS. Oh. There we go. This is what I was expecting. I don't know why that wasn't in the guide. That was really the weird part about this to me. So what I think we have to do is create a new command. And that new command, and here's going to be the big difference. Like, let's just, it'll be easier if you see it this way. So I'm going to use exactly the same command as before, and we'll add the comma so it's valid JSON. And then we're going to append to the end and I'm going to use the full flag name so I know I'm not like confused in the future. Watch as this, and then we can change this to watch. So now if I do npm run watch, okay, this is what I was expecting, that I thought it would kind of just do by default. So now anytime I make a change to my a template file, actually let's try that. I'm gonna have to pick a random color or something that I don't know, something that's definitely not in anything else. So let's say 500 template, it really doesn't matter where. I just need to make a change in the content area. So this is a template file, and we'll say BG yellow 900. I don't know if that's going to actually work or not. Okay. So maybe I didn't really point out what you should be paying attention to, but you can see that there's a rebuilding here when it started, but there's this second rebuilding, and that happened when I hit the save on my template file. So if I put in a bunch of enters, and then I go back and I undo this set of change here, and I save again, you can see there's another rebuild. So the trick is that we have to accomplish is, how do we get that rebuild into the actual workflow that I have? Because when I'm running the actual local web server, I have a makefile command, and what it's doing is running Heroku local, which is cool. What Heroku local does is it loads a .env file, which is what I want, but it also reads from my proc file. And the proc file is literally what I tell the deployment process to run. So my actual website and what Heroku is running is this command right here. But what I really need, and it's going to run everything that has a line in here, although release is special, so Heroku local knows to ignore release. But what I really want is something like, well, we'll do the naive version of what I can't actually do, and then we'll do like what I think has to be the real version. So I'm going to call this front end. It doesn't really matter. And we'll say npm run watch. So now when I start up Heroku local, it's going to do two things. You can see it started my web, but it also started this separate process. So that's good, because now I can kind of do this, and I can go back to my example on the 500 template, and I can say, what did I say? BG yellow 900 was something different. Why does it keep doing that? I'm hitting the wrong keys. And here it is. It's running this again, and that's good news. So that's the flow that I'm going to need to have. But what I don't need to do is on my real deployment run with that front end command. It's just not like Heroku's not going to know what that is, and it will be confused by that. So what I have to do is figure out a way to tell Heroku local what to run. And it might have to be a separate proc file that's just meant for development, and I'll just have to keep them in sync. Ideally, I would have an extra proc file that I could say, okay, Heroku local, run this too, but I don't know if that's available. So we've got Heroku local, and I'm looking for where the proc file is. I know that I've passed in a different proc file before. And why is it not showing up in this help? Is this a short help? Sometimes they do stupid things, like if you... Wow. Yeah, look at the only difference that I was a -h versus a -- help. That's dumb. So it looks like I can use -f with or a -- proc file to use a different proc file. But can I do it twice? Do they stack? Let's try that version first and see if I can get away with just having like one extra file that has just that front end command and then stack them together. If not, I'll have to make a separate proc file for dev. Let's bring up the proc file again, and we'll do proc file.dev. So that'll just have that for the moment, and then I'll have just this in this one. And rather than modifying the make target for now, let's do Heroku local. And it was -f proc file. If I can give it another -f to do two of them. No, it's just taking the last one. Well, that stinks. Okay, fine. So this is one thing that I'll have to be careful about keeping in sync. Thankfully, I basically never have to change the proc file, so that's not really a big problem. So now if I run, nope, I haven't modified the make target yet. So let's go modify the make file to do Heroku local -f with proc file.dev. And now when I run make, it's going to run them both. All right, let's go to the site, see if it actually looks the same. That's one part of this that so far we're just trusting that the migration guide is solid, and I don't have any reason to distrust them. But if we do a side-by-side comparison, oh, it's looking pretty pixel perfect to me, at least on the home page. Now this is going to have content and the other one's not, so that's a problem. But I have in my site. All right. Well, I'm not going to be able to do a true. They're looking pretty darn identical to me, even though some of the content in the middle is changing. I think that's good. So feeling like this upgrade is about where I wanted to be. I was most concerned about running this separate process, but I think that's going to be okay. So now we need to come back to here. I do not want to keep that weird yellow error there. So let's ditch that. We've got a new command to do a watch. We're using a new proc file to actually take advantage of that watch command. And then we've got the new file itself. This is truly the whole set of changes here. I think that's what we want. we'll say use a watcher with local development. All right, and then we'll do hub. Hub is a local command that gives me an interface to work with GitHub. It's really cool. It uses you create a GitHub personal access token, and it allows you to do API calls. So rather than going to the GitHub user interface to create a pull request, I can create a pull request straight from this PR. And we'll give it the title that would go here. It goes on the first line, and then anything a couple lines below will be the description. So we'll say upgrade to Tailwind v3. And I don't actually need a description. This is just me on this project. One of these flags, I think the P flag does like a follow. So if I have any, if I create the pull request and I have more local commits and I need to push them up, I can then just do a git push. So that's what that P flag. And the -C flag does a cool thing where it copies the URL of the PR to your clipboard. So I can now come to a new tab and paste in whatever was there, and it automatically opens up to the PR itself. And you can see my test run is running there. And let's look through some of the changes really briefly and make sure that it looks good before we merge it. And then once that's done, I think I have another change that I want to work through. I don't know if we'll solve it tonight, but it's related to CSS stuff, which is why I want to tie it into this upgrade stuff, because I don't know if it's been fixed. With the change I made, I doubt it. And if it's not, we'll have a little mystery to solve. So we've got a makefile change. We have this new proc file. Clean up the site. Change the config. We don't care about the package JSON. It's just a big blob of stuff. And so the package lock JSON, in case you're not super familiar with JavaScript, is the set of all the packages. So we list the dependencies that we actually care about in the top level package JSON. And as NPM's doing its installation, it says, hey, I found this version and this version and this version. And all of that stuff gets thrown together and like says that, hey, this is the known good set of packages that you installed at the time when you're actually testing, and it kind of locks it into place, which is why it's called package lock. We've got the new script command. We upgraded the engine. We fixed the dependencies, and apparently Node changed their key from, or I guess, oh no, this is me. Just the way I switched this from dependencies to dev dependencies. That's fine. And then got rid of the flexgrow. We're going to see a bunch of those. So one of the aspects of the GitHub UI that I like is that it does this highlighting of what's actually changed. Like when I was looking at this through Vim, I kind of had to scan around for that transform or all that stuff, and this makes it really obvious that you got it right. That's why I'm scrolling through here now, looking for the changes. What? This had flexgrow and flexshrink on it? I pulled this from some kind of template area, and that's bizarre to me. You can have both grow and shrink. I don't know that actually works. All right. I think the changes are going to be good. Just quickly scanning through them. So apologies if it's just like too much streaming by your face. It's really not terribly important. I want to just make sure I didn't commit anything stupid, you know? And it gives the CI system a little bit of extra time. All right, I think we're all good. Yep. So let's merge it. And we can return back over here. UCO main. There we go. Okay. Now it's time to solve a customer problem. We're not going to get back to the PDF stuff tonight. That'll be for next week. We'll try with a new CSS file and see if we can make the actual PDFs look like the way we want them to look. But today, we have a print issue to solve, and this is going to be funky to work through, perhaps, but it might be entertaining. I guess I should close out the issue too. There was this, I had an issue here. Done. Yay. So here's my issue that's going on. And it's going to make more sense to see it. Let's bring up the server and bring up the app again. So here I've got 2 students in this homeschool. This is the weekly view, and I should be able to print this. Won't actually be able to print because I'm not connected to a printer, but it'll give me a print preview. And the important part of this, that might be, it's a little bit of an eye, hard on the eye. So I apologize for its small size there. But we're looking at this print preview, and notice that one student is on one page and the other student is on another page. And that's by design. It was requested by my spouse initially, and then others, that a week schedule should be able to print 1 page per student, ideally. So even though this is clearly not enough content to have them split up, on a full school year, there's actually going to be multiple courses, and it might actually even spill onto 2 pages. But the idea, the core idea was at least separate the students so they're clear. However, let's go over to, there's a daily view. The same kind of thing. And if we do the same print preview, check this out. 1 page. So this was reported by one of my customers, actually my sister-in-law. And the funny part about this is that it uses the same exact CSS print class to cause this change in theory. So I would think that it would work the same way, and that this would display on separate pages just like the other. But clearly that's not the case. So the mystery that we have in front of ourselves is, why is the print break not actually working? And there's a couple of opportunities here. One thing that we can try before getting too far in this is to switch the print class. So here is where the old version of Tailwind didn't actually support my needs. We go back to the latest Tailwind and do a search. There are print styles. There didn't used to be print styles, to my knowledge. And so some of these are cool. This is exactly what I would want. Print hidden. These are things that I don't want them to appear when I'm printing. And I'm using those. I'm using that kind of functionality anyway. But right now, the way that's done is with a separate class that I created custom, that I'm just happening to include. So I want to be able to say print hide, and oh, excuse me, that's me dragging my foot. I don't know if you heard that. I want to be able to say print hide, but use the actual Tailwind native way to do it, which would be print : hidden. And then ideally, there would be representations for every single one of these, and then I could just get rid of this file. I'm not going to do all that tonight. Probably we'll just try and apply the print styles that are equivalent for the areas. This is the print break after page, and find what the equivalent is. So break, there's a break after. And you can see break after page. And I want to only have that apply for the print. Now the challenge here is that if I go to the base template, you'll see how this works. This style sheet only comes into play when the media option of the style sheet is set to print. So it's a media breakpoint if you know CSS. So we have to be careful that like I don't. The foolish thing to do would just be to take this break after page thing and drop it in there with no other change. But it needs to be prefixed with print for that very specific reason that otherwise it would just break all the time, even in the regular web flow, which is definitely not what we want. So let's go try and replace that print after break with this break after page thing. And it might be a very minor change. This is the daily template. You can see I've got a couple print hides there. So I think actually the only change that I'm gonna have to do here is change this from a dash to a colon. Oops. So that's going to tell the system to now use Tailwind's equivalent version. It's going to be the same exact CSS class because I'm pretty sure they kind of show you what it maps to. And so this is break after page, which if you look at go back to my custom CSS here, was setting to break after page. So I'm doing the equivalent thing, but ideally when I'm done, I get to delete this class and just ship a little bit less bytes to the user, because I'll be able to delete this line and the real benefit is if I'm doing one fewer network call, because right now I'm doing 2 separate network calls to get the style sheet, and that means that the browser is going to block waiting for both of them and then parsing both of them. So if I force all of the print stuff to come from this one site CSS, then I get to delete this and I get some extra performance benefits out of that. So I gotta get that lined up. Now we've got this daily thing. Let's go back and to our view here. Let's refresh the page and just make sure that it's there. Should be. Nope, come on. Yep, there it is. Break after page. Now, the print styles are really annoying to see, in my opinion, because you can only see them when certain media breakpoints are activated. So I find this actually easier to do in Firefox than in Chrome. In Firefox, there's this button here that says toggle print media simulation. So this is all the things that would come out differently. And the important part now is we've got this showing up, print break after page. Now already there's something here that I might have missed, which see it's this dash Moz column. So I'm not really sure. So let's turn this off and try the print preview again, now that we're using the Tailwind version, and see if it's caught something that my version didn't have. Nope, still the same problem. So I still don't know. We didn't fix it with the Tailwind change. That would have been the awesome quick win, but we have made the site slightly better through this one change here. So what do we need next? I think what I need to do is strip this style down to like the studs until there's nothing left, until we can prove that we actually do get the page break. And once we get it down to here is this version that has the 2 students separated on separate pages, then we can start building the style back up slowly and figure out what did I do along the way that caused this to become a problem. Because once upon a time, when I initially designed this page, it actually did do the split. So there must be some change that I made to some style, and print is particularly finicky, that maybe some flex utility, some sort of attribute that cause the print layout functionality to work improperly. So that's where we need to go from here. So I think to do this, how do we do this? We need to like have some basic confirmation that it works overall. And I'm going to comment out a bunch of junk, and it's going to look awful, but I think it's going to do what we need it to do. So let's start at the top and see if it, and we'll just take it a piece at a time and keep refreshing, keep checking the print preview until it starts to look right. Actually, before I start making these changes, let's add that one print style change. Okay. So this really shouldn't matter, but I'm going to hide all of that stuff. I'm just going to comment it out using, this is, in case you're like, what the heck is that? This is the Django template comment syntax, which I have mapped conveniently with my Vim editor. So I can highlight a bunch of lines and comment it out, and it does that quickly. If I come back over here and refresh, we lost our UI at the top, but that's okay. Click the print button, still on a single page. All right, next. We know for certain that we're not coming in here because it's not saying no scheduled tasks. So we're definitely down in this else block. So it doesn't help us to comment this chunk out. I mean, I could, but it's not doing anything. We're only in this really long else block. For the moment, how about we like go all the way down to just the username. So let's comment out this and come all the way down to the bottom of this for loop. Comment out that. I think that's the right. Now we're down to very little. And you can see all it's got is the class that has the print break after page. It's got the header. It's got the other one. So in theory, this should be on separate pages. The way break after page works. Let's go to the documentation for it. Well, I guess they don't have it here. Break after page is supposed to like do exactly what it sounds like. Put them, cause a break after a page boundary. Which isn't, actually now I'm saying that, is that the right? Break after page. It adjusts page breaks after the current element. So it's a little awkwardly named. Let's make sure we're on the reading this right. Forces a page break right after the principal box. So the way I would read that, and you hopefully you agree. So I'm reading this as this is the principal box. They don't define that well, and they use principal. I don't like. I always thought that was a person, but it might be in primary. I don't know. But the way I'm reading that is here's the principal box that has this on it. I would expect there to be a break after this box. But it's not there. So why is it not there? Maybe I don't understand the break option that I'm using. There's always that possibility that I just don't get it, that I don't have the right understanding of this. Or alternatively, I haven't gone down to something simple enough, because there are other aspects of this. Is like this stuff is in a form. So could it be that the handling, like the fact that it's in a form, causes it to not consider breaks? Let's test that theory. Let's comment out the form stuff. Go to the end of the for loop. And we can even comment out the button too. And this is the end of the form. Return to this. Now we've got really nothing. Like, this is legit as about as small as I'm going to get this. Oh ho! Look at that. Aha! So I think we found it. This is breaking if it is not wrapped in the form. Oh, shoot. That is a problem. Why is that a problem? Daily page. Now that we know what the problem is, we'll do this. In fact, restore it to the full style. And let's see if we can prove it without we've got all that other stuff back in. Let's see if we just take out the form stuff, if it'll prove the theory. Let's go here, and then these are the two. Whoops. These are the chunks we want to chop off. I guess I didn't need to chop off the save button, but. And then what happens if we try and print this? Yep, 2. Junk. Okay. All right, let's talk about it. I'm not sure how to fix this, to be honest. Because if I fix it, it's going to create other problems. What other problems? All right. The goal of this page, the daily page, is to say, oh, all your kids are done. You can click this. You can click this. You hit save. It finishes everybody all at once. This, I think, is a good thing. It kind of collects up all of the stuff, and it does it in one submission. To enable that, as you saw from the markup just a second ago, the whole thing is a form. If I were to put a form here and a form here, then it wouldn't be possible for someone from the daily view to just go straight to hitting the save button one time. There'd have to be a save button here and a save button here. And that just feels gross. It's not the flow that my customers wanted. And so I'm not sure what to do about that. Now maybe I can find other ways to handle this. But I don't think I'm going to figure it out this evening. I'm going to need some time to think about it. At least, though, that I've narrowed down the problem to here's why the print view is not printing. Maybe this is at least something we can search for. Let's see. Break after page. Broken in form. How to add page breaks when printing a form. Maybe this is kind of in the area. This is some forum stuff. We don't need to spend our time staring at this together. Somebody's poorly formatted forum question. Maybe there's another kind of break I could use. Page break inside. I don't know. What does that one do? Is there an inside? Where did you see page break inside Decopetri? Let me search on this page. Break inside. What does that do? Within an element. Man, this stuff just breaks my brain sometimes. Utilities for controlling how a column or page should break within an element. Yeah, we want it to break within the form, so that would be kind of what we want. Break. Avoid page. What does that mean? All right, let's go back to MDN. Like, Tailwind's great, but it doesn't tell you everything about what the actual CSS is. It's because it's not their job. Break inside sets how page, column, or region breaks should behave inside a generated box. If there is no generated box, the property is ignored. But avoid page, like that seems like the opposite. Avoid any breaks. Avoid any page break. I don't, It's a good idea. I don't know that it's going to work in our case, but I appreciate the thought. Might be trying to say, like, make sure that all this stuff is, that's probably what it is. So, like, you have a thing about a book, and maybe you have, like, a kind of a call-out section in a book. And rather than having the call-out section be split up into, like, the top of the call out at bottom of one page and the next part of the call out being at the top of the next page, it wants to treat the whole thing as a unit so that it will it'd rather leave empty space on a previous page and put it fresh on a new page. That's how I would interpret this particular CSS attribute. Okay. So the other options that I can think of that might help here would be to, like, maybe do some more dynamic stuff with JavaScript, look for like multiple forms in the page and kind of aggregate them together and submit it all as one big mega form. Because I kind of already do some shenanigans anyway. Like I didn't really talk too much about how this form is put together, but it's already bordering on a pretty dynamic page. So when if I inspect this checkbox, there's some silliness in here. So it says that there's a task and there's the equivalent like hidden thing. So I could have all of these be set and then the button. Problem is this is just a standard form submit button that knows about its surrounding context. So it doesn't need any JavaScript, I don't think. Is there any JavaScript on this page? There is a little bit. Okay. But that's for the JavaScript on this page is for these, to do that as one fell swoop. What I need to do is, if I was going to do this with JavaScript, the save button would then, like, you could imagine each one of these being a separate form, and then this is a separate form. The problem here, though, is then the save button doesn't know which form it's trying to submit. So what I would, but really they'd be going to the same place, because the back-end processing for this kind of takes any tasks as long as they have that pattern of task dash and then the ID that we saw. So if it follows, where'd it go? If it follows this pattern of having this task dash ID name, it knows what to do with that. Oh, that's weird. Hidden. So it knows what to do with that. And I could write a bit of code that would make the save button do the posting. What I don't like about that is not everybody uses JavaScript, although in 2022, I don't know who's still turning off JavaScript. Maybe I should just assume that if you're using my site, you're dealing with a little bit of JavaScript. So that's the only way I can think to get around this page break issue. If the form is what's the actual limiting factor, we have to break the form into the chunks. Okay, well, that's the discovery. And the reason that, okay, it makes more sense now that the weekly view, which had similar kind of concept, is that the difference is that there's no form here. This is purely a display thing, so it's not wrapping them up. Okay. I'm curious why this used to work and then now it's broken, because I'm pretty positive I tested this when I first wrote this feature. Oh well. Okay. We'll say the form element causes the page breaks to fail because they are wrapped in a single form. And I'll stew on that. I don't know that we're going to solve it on stream. This might be one that I just handle offline. I think next week we'll probably get back to the PDF stuff that we're working on and do the actual styling of the PDF now that we have Tailwind available and see how that goes. Should be fun. Thank you for joining in. I take this content and I post it up on YouTube. I'm actually thinking about switching to YouTube as my streaming platform because I find that Twitch doesn't necessarily give me a whole lot of advantages, and I already have YouTube stuff over there. So if I can streamline my flow, then I might do that. I will, of course, let you all know before I make that decision, though, so that you can find me, and then I will share that on my social accounts, which you can follow me on Twitter as MB Layman. I have the same kind of username and handle everywhere. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do that too. This content does go up to YouTube. I don't have MB Layman on YouTube. I'm Matt Layman over there. You can search for me, and I take all of this stream content and post it over there. I also have other various Python presentations from the local meetup that I run here in Frederick, Maryland, and so that content's available too. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate Zico Petri, thank you for joining in and commenting. I appreciate your commentary. It was useful, and I enjoyed it. Have a great evening, y'all. Take care.